Volume 3. Who's ready? 3, we're getting into the very meat and potatoes of foundation of the story. Just to do a quick recap, we started out Volume 1, a heavenly council, as they say. And this is basically a meeting where we have a galaxy that has been scattered, it's been attacked. There is a darkness over all the creation. And there was messengers sent from that galaxy to the galaxy we are in now, the Milky Way galaxy. And they are meeting with the gods of this galaxy. And they're saying there is something coming. And they also said, and here is this piece of Aviel, who we will learn about more in the story. He then takes that light matter from Aviel and says, send 2 down to Earth, take this light matter from Aviel. They're creating like a hybrid human. All right, at the very tail end of World War II, right when Germany is falling, America has gathered up a lot of these scientists like von Braun and some of the others. Well, the Roswell incident happens right after that, right? At the Roswell incident was actually these 2 messengers who were concealing their identity and coming in as like non-holy beings, UAPs maybe, if you will. And they're saying, we have these secrets we want to share with you. The United States government is saying, okay, we're going to learn these secrets. We're going to learn from these aliens. We have a top secret mission we're going to do. They're preparing for the NASA missions, down the road. And they're saying we need like a top secret precursor mission to test our technology, our rocket technology that we want to do for these Apollo missions. And that's where Arthur comes in. Part human, part from this other galaxy. He doesn't know that. There's only a couple people that really know his true identity. Not even his mom knows that. Let's get into his mom, Volume 2. The general brings her into the office, basically saying, we have this top secret mission. It's going to involve testing on your body. We're going to remove an ovary, nuclear extraction, reintroduction, fancy words for cloning or for creating a human hybrid. Now, Volume 3 is where we come into the actual action, or the scene, if you will, of this happening. Okay, the moment of which the doctors are working on Miriam. Let me set this scene up for you. Imagine this. You have a couple of scientists. One of them is one of these senior Nazi scientists that was discovered at the end of World War II. He's one of these people that the United States government brought in, which they did actually do, which is kind of crazy and scary to think about. But they did bring in these Nazi scientists, and he has done terrible things, as you can imagine, while he was a Nazi. Then you have a junior scientist. If you can imagine, they're behind like an observation room. Like you see in interrogation rooms where they have, the mirror that's a one-way see-through mirror. Imagine that situation, but with an operation room. So these Nazi scientists are kind of overseeing this go down in the operation room. So there's a team of doctors and nurses in the operation room getting ready to work on Miriam. Only a couple people know what they're actually doing is implanting the embryo with like alien DNA. So just like the other volumes, let's go through this. I'll play it in its entirety. We'll go back through again, break things down. All right, so let's listen.
Volume 3 of Grand Design.
Sir, are you ready to begin? The team is assembled. The patient is under. Everything is set. On your command.
The young scientist asked.
Ready. Let us proceed, just as briefed. I will remain for observation.
The senior engineer replied, his harsh German accent cutting through the room. He folded his arms and stared through the observation glass as the all-clear signal was given. Marion was wheeled in, the team already moving with clinical precision. Behind the cold wall of glass, the 2 scientists in white jackets stood like statues, watching every motion. The silence stretched until the German spoke.
Many times my patients did not have anesthetic. Most screamed. Most cursed me. They all hated me.
His words were low, almost a whisper. The junior scientist froze, stunned that the man would speak so openly of his time as a Nazi, and of what the American government had forgiven.
Generous of you to call them patients, sir,
the junior said, defiance threaded into his still voice. The German's gaze never left the procedure.
Yet there was one. She lay in silence. Nothing could make her move, not a cry, not even a blink, except when the body demanded it. Her eyes, dark, cold eyes, I still see them.
Sir,
the junior cut in sharply, impatience rising.
let's focus on the task at hand.
Beyond the glass, the doctor and nurses worked steadily. Then from the table came a vial, white, shining with a strange brilliance.
So that was actually quite a bit more than I was anticipating to share, but I hope that snags your attention. Let's talk about what's going on here. The scene is set with an observatory room that's looking into a operation room. And you have these two scientists, American scientists, who are in charge of overseeing this operation. What's happening is you have a junior scientist and you have a senior scientist. The senior scientist is in charge of everything. He's probably a doctor as well as like a scientist type. He's done a lot of out-of-the-box scientific testing on human individuals, okay? Which is why he's a good fit to do something like this, because this is something that's never been done before. He's one of the people that had actually communicated with the aliens that came at Roswell. So he's one of two people that know exactly what's going on. Now remember, the only thing that he doesn't know, and all the humans don't know, is that the two aliens that came to Earth had their identities concealed so that the people that they communicated with here on Earth would not know their divine nature. It was really hard for me I had so many different voices that I tried with the senior scientist. Finding something that had kind of a German accent at all was very hard. One day, very soon, I'll be able to hire real voice actors and get exactly what I'm looking for. And for now, like, it works. The junior, I feel like there's still a little bit of work I could probably do to make him more smooth and more convincing. But I feel like overall, this volume has a really good flow to it, and it presents the story well. I don't like giving away every single detail when I write. I want readers to imagine in their mind and use context clues to figure the storyline out. I hate just having everything handed to a reader. A lot of the ways that I like to do that is with the sound. So you heard a lot of hospital room type sounds going on. And that's another thing, it was hard for me to find era appropriate hospital room sounds. So a hospital room in the early 50s probably sounded a lot different than the hospital rooms that you're hearing on this recording. For instance, you're hearing the heart monitor beeps, you're hearing instrumentation that is like more digital. And you know what, I really, at the end of the day, I'm taking some artistic freedom and expression to get the point across that this is a hospital. Okay, let's not get caught up in the weeds on little details that at the end of the day probably don't matter a whole lot. I mean, I know there's a lot of readers that will be like, bothered by this, but at the end of the day, when you're listening and you're thinking, okay, this sounds like a hospital, that's the only thing I'm trying to get my point across with that. So you're listening on, you're in a hospital, the scientists are communicating back and forth. Some of the things you hear the senior scientists say, this is the part that never happened. So everybody else is kind of shocked. They don't really know what just happened. They know that he's in control. He is the one that's in charge of all this. So they understand, okay, well, whatever happened was supposed to happen. He basically says, keep an eye on her. We'll reconvene in a few days. They think that their main quest is actually this doctor's side quest. The nuclear alteration, reintegration piece is what they think that they're doing in this moment. But really what they're doing, planting this alien DNA into this human embryo, re-embedding it back into her. It's a good groundwork. So there's a lot of mystery involved with layers to it. Okay, so let's talk about the music for a second. This piano piece I wrote many years ago, 2015 or 16. Every year I go through this World War II Holocaust phase where I binge, read, watch any kind of media that I can ingest with the Holocaust or with World War II. I binge it and get it out of my system after like a week or two, and then I'm good for another year type of thing. So while I was in one of these moods of just World War II era stuff, I wrote this piece, and it's a very simple piece. Like all of my pieces are actually very simple. I just really enjoy writing simple melodies that are unique. One of my favorite artists is Sting. He says, you know, a lot of people can write very technical stuff, and there's a lot of skill that goes into writing very technical pieces. But the true genius is when you can write very simple melodies and they be unique enough that they're different, but similar enough that people recognize and love them. Don't quote me on exactly the verbatim, but basically something like that's what he said. I absolutely love it. And I feel like that's kind of where my heart is as a musician. I've never been super flashy when it comes to technical ability. There's many players out there that are way better than I am with guitar and piano. But I play strictly from the heart, and and that's how I write. I write strictly what I want to hear. And I'm a selfish artist. I love to just kind of write for myself. And then I feel like it's kind of the same thing with writing. I write for myself. I write the stories that I want to hear and find interesting to myself, and hopefully a lot of people will come on for the ride. All right, so tell me what you think about Volume 3. I hope you like it. I hope it gets you excited for Volume 4, because what's going to start happening now is we're going to start being able to introduce Arthur into the mix. Arthur's our main character. He's a very complex and dynamic character. We're going to see him in Volume 4 as a little kid. He's going to be basically like a toddler. And there's some very interesting things that are going on with Arthur. A lot of unknowns since he is this hybrid human alien person. Thanks a lot for watching. If you made it to the end, congrats to you and thank you. I hope that everybody will get excited and get on this Avador train with me. If you have any questions or anything, please comment. See you guys.